I never thought a human body could run on 2 hours of sleep and sheer panic alone until I became the proof. My name is Stella Morgan, and while most people were waking up to coffee and sunlight, I was dragging myself from one exhausting job to the next, praying my heart wouldn't give out before payday. 4 jobs. One collapsing body. Zero support. I did it all to pay off the debts. My parents created debts they swore they had no one else in the world but me to handle. So I kept going, until the night I fainted face down on burning asphalt while delivering fries to someone who probably slept better than I had in years. But what broke me wasn't the collapse. It was what I discovered after, while I was killing myself to keep them alive. My parents won the lottery and erased me from their lives, and that was only the beginning. People say you can get used to anything. Pain, exhaustion, even hopelessness. I used to believe that too until my life turned into a rotating carousel of 4 jobs that never stopped spinning long enough for me to breathe. Every morning at 6 a.m., I stood inside the sunlit master bedroom of Mr. Charles Davenport, the frail 82-year-old man I cared for. His voice trembled when he spoke, but his eyes, cloudy and tired, always softened when he saw me. "Good morning, Stella," he would whisper. "Did you sleep at all?" I always answered the same lie. "A few hours. I'm fine." But the truth was uglier. Some nights I didn't sleep at all. After leaving his mansion at 2 p.m., I rushed home, took a 3-minute shower, swallowed a stale granola bar, and headed straight to my janitorial shift. From 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., I scrubbed office floors while inhaling bleach fumes so strong they felt like they were stripping the inside of my lungs. At 9 p.m., I switched to my delivery job. My beat-up Honda Civic rattled louder than my shaking hands. The AC dead for 2 years, hot air slapping my face as I drove through Phoenix nights. By midnight, I dragged myself into my tiny studio apartment to fix laptops, usually until the sky turned purple again. 2 hours of sleep. If I was lucky, all that money, every dollar, every cent, went to one place: my parents. My mother, Marie, loved luxury handbags she pretended were real. My father, Thomas, loved betting on football so badly he once lost half a year of mortgage payments in a week. But what they seemed to love most was my paycheck. Mom never asked me, "Are you eating? Are you okay?" No. Her texts were always the same. "Stella, we're short again. Send more money. Your father's back hurts. Buy his supplements." And every time her name lit up my screen, my stomach knotted. I wanted God, I ached for them to notice me, to see how hard I was fighting to hold everything together. But they didn't see a daughter. They saw a solution. A walking wallet. One day, Mr. Charles watched me rub my temples, trying not to pass out. He whispered, "Child, people can only take from you if you let them." I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "They're my parents. I have to help." But even as the words left my mouth, I felt the lie burn. I wasn't helping them. I was bleeding myself dry, and they were watching without blinking. I just didn't know that soon. They would take the last thing I had left: my trust. People always imagine collapse as something dramatic: sirens, screaming, chaos. But for me, it happened quietly, almost gently. It was a suffocating Phoenix night, close to 11 p.m., and I was delivering a $12 order of chicken tenders. My vision had been blurry since sunset, and every time I blinked, black spots flickered in and out like dying stars. I told myself, "Just one more order, Stella. One more." But halfway through the drive, my heart skipped a beat. Then another. Then began hammering so violently it felt like someone was shaking me from the inside. My hand slipped on the steering wheel. My breath came in sharp, thin gasps. The world tilted. "Not now. Please, not now," I whispered to no one. I pulled to the side of the road, stumbled out of the car, and tried to stand upright. My legs buckled. Then everything spun. My ears rang. Heat pressed into my chest like a burning iron. Someone shouted, "Hey, are you okay? Miss Hay?" But their voice stretched into a long echo. The asphalt rushed toward my face, and the world snapped into blackness. I woke up under harsh hospital lights, the chemical smell of disinfectant filling my lungs. My left arm was hooked up to an IV. My whole body felt like it had been dragged across gravel. A nurse approached, pity softening her eyes. "Miss Morgan, you collapsed from severe exhaustion and dehydration. Your heartbeat was dangerously unstable. You're very lucky. Someone called 911. Lucky. If only she knew how ironic that word was. I croaked out. My parents. Are they here? She hesitated, shook her head. Did they call? Another shake. For a moment, I genuinely believed the clock was wrong, that it had only been 10 minutes since I passed out. But when I checked, it had been 12 hours since the hospital contacted my next of kin. 12 hours. No call, no message, nothing. On day 3, I tried calling them first. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. On day 4, my mother finally called back. I answered with a cracked whisper. Mom, I'm in the hospital. Why haven't you? She cut me off sharply. Stella, handle the bills yourself. And get out of there soon, we need you working. The interest is due next week. Not a single. Are you okay? Not even a sigh of concern. The call ended. I stared at the ceiling until the tears slipped sideways into my hair, hot and endless. For the first time, a thought formed in my mind. A thought I had always been too scared to say aloud. Maybe they didn't love me at all. Maybe they only loved what I could give them. And that realization hurt worse than the collapse itself. I spent 5 silent, lonely days in that hospital room. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor, and the cold realization that no one was coming for me. No family, no friends, just me, and the truth I had avoided for years. On the 5th morning, my phone buzzed. Not from my parents, not from anyone I expected. The caller ID said, Mr. Charles Davenport. I stared at the name in disbelief. My shaking thumb slid across the screen. Stella? His voice was thin, but warm. Warm in a way nothing else in my life had been lately. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Hi, sir. I'm sorry I haven't been coming in. Child, he interrupted gently. I'm not calling about the work. I'm calling about you. Are you feeling better today? That question. Are you feeling better today? Hit me like a punch straight to the chest. No one had asked me that in years. My voice broke. I'm trying. There was a pause, then the soft rustle of blankets. Don't rush to come back. Someone else can help me for now. You must rest. You hear me, Stella? Rest. Another word I hadn't heard in forever. After we hung up, I pressed the phone to my forehead and cried. Quiet, shaking sobs that came from a place deeper than exhaustion. When I returned to work a week later, Charles's eyes lit up like a child seeing sunshine. He reached out a trembling hand. Come here, Stella. Sit. Don't start working yet. I sat beside him, blinking back tears. He looked at me for a long moment, studying my hollow cheeks, the dark circles under my eyes, the stiffness in my shoulders. Tell me the truth, he whispered. How long have you been living like this? Something inside me cracked open. I told him everything. About the debt, about the 4 jobs, about collapsing, about my parents ignoring me, about how I felt like a worn-out machine pretending to be alive. I kept apologizing between sobs, as if crying itself was a crime. When I finally stopped, Charles placed his palm on the back of my hand. Paper-thin skin, warm and trembling. Stella, listen to me. You are not weak, you are tired. That is different. Then he whispered something I would never forget. And remember this, blood does not make someone family. Loyalty does. Kindness does. My throat tightened. Then what am I to you? He looked at me with eyes full of something close to love. You are the granddaughter I wished I had. The words sank into me slowly, then all at once. A truth my heart didn't know how to hold yet, but desperately needed. He cared. He truly cared. And in a life full of people who only took from me, that made him the brightest thing I had. A week after returning to work, my body was still fragile, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I finally admitted something I'd never dared say out loud. My parents didn't care about me. They cared about my money. But even then, even after the hospital, a part of me still hoped they'd change. I was wrong. Dead wrong. It was Saturday evening when I called them. I just wanted to ask if they needed anything before I sent my usual transfer. My father picked up. The background was loud, music, laughter, clinking glasses. Dad? Where are you? He chuckled, actually chuckled. We're having a little gathering. Don't bother us now. My chest tightened. A gathering? With what money? Before I could ask, he hung up. I opened Facebook, and that's when my world cracked open. My mother had posted a picture. A long table covered in white linen, rows of wine glasses filled with expensive red wine, steak, lobster, A 3-tier cake. A sparkling new dress on her body. The caption, "Thank you, universe. A new chapter begins today." My ears started ringing. I scrolled. Another picture. And another. Each one more extravagant than the last. Then the comment that broke me. "Congrats on winning the lottery. You two deserve it." My heart stopped. My brain refused to process the sentence. Lottery? Lottery? Hands shaking, I grabbed my keys and drove to their house. The moment I walked through the front gate, EDM blasted into my chest. People were everywhere, dancing, drinking, laughing. Not a single familiar face turned toward me. I was invisible. I pushed through the crowd and found them. My parents, standing in the center like the king and queen of a kingdom they didn't earn. My mother saw me first. Her smile dropped. "Stella? What are you doing here?" My voice came out thin and cracking. "Mom, did you win the lottery?" She lifted her champagne glass. "Yes, $4.2 million. No more begging you for money, huh?" Someone nearby snorted. "Begging? Wasn't she the one giving them money?" My father snapped. "That's none of your business. Stella, why are you here ruining our moment?" I felt the sting in my eyes. "Ruining? Dad, I worked myself to death. I paid your debts. I almost died last week. And you never even visited. Now I find out you're celebrating." He slammed his glass onto the table. "So what? You're our daughter. You were supposed to help. Don't act like you're the victim." My mother added, "We don't need you anymore. You can stop pretending you're some kind of hero." The room went quiet. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Whispers rose like smoke. Is she asking them for money? Ungrateful. Embarrassing. My hands trembled uncontrollably. "So, you won $4 million. And didn't tell me, and didn't think to help with the debt I took on for you?" My father stepped closer, breath heavy with alcohol. "That debt is your problem now. We've moved on. You should too." My mother turned her back to me. The final slap. "Go home, Stella. You're not part of this new life." Something inside me broke. Not a crack. A shatter. I stumbled out of the house, barely seeing through my tears. 3 days later, I returned, hoping stupidly, desperately that maybe they had sobered up. Maybe they'd apologize. Maybe they'd call me daughter again, but the house was empty. Furniture gone. Walls stripped bare. Front door wide open. A single envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, one handwritten note. "Stella, we're starting fresh. The debt is yours. Don't look for us. Good luck." I collapsed onto the cold floor, the note trembling in my fist. They had abandoned me. Completely. Without hesitation. Without shame. And as I sat alone in that hollow house, the last thread connecting me to them dissolved, leaving only grief, disbelief, and a rage so deep it felt like fire in my bones. After my parents disappeared with their lottery millions, I felt like a ghost trapped in a world no longer meant for me. But even then, I still had one place where I could breathe. Mr. Charles Davenport's mansion. Or so I thought. For the next few weeks, I arrived earlier than usual, even when exhaustion gnawed at my bones. I would sit beside him, adjusting his blanket, listening to his faint stories. His voice was getting weaker. His hands colder, his breaths shorter. Deep down, I knew what was coming, but I wasn't ready. Not for this. Not for losing the one person who had ever loved me without taking something in return. One unusually quiet morning, I walked into the mansion and instantly felt that something was wrong. The housekeeper was standing in the hallway, eyes red, wringing her hands. I whispered, Is he okay?" She lowered her head. "Stella." He passed at 3 a.m., peacefully, in his sleep. The world did something strange then. It tilted and felt too silent, too cold. I didn't cry at first. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at the spot on the floor as if something inside me had turned to stone. The funeral was grand, too grand. White lilies everywhere. Politicians, business partners, strangers in black suits whispering about stock prices and inheritance. I stood in the very last row, wearing the only black dress I owned, my hands clasped so tight my knuckles turned white. Charles's children and grandchildren stood in the front, emotionless, bored, checking their phones. Not one tear, not even a flicker of sadness. Then I heard them whispering, "I wonder who gets the Malibu house. Hope I'm in the will. I better be. Dad better have left the company shares to us." My stomach churned. Not a single word about the man, only the money he left behind. I stepped farther back, almost hiding behind a marble pillar. What right did I have to stand near the casket of a billionaire? What right did I have to mourn him more than his own blood? As the pallbearers carried the casket toward the exit, a tear finally escaped me. Quiet, hot, and devastating. I whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for seeing me." In that moment, loneliness washed over me with brutal clarity. I had lost the only real family I'd ever known, and I had no idea that his death would drag me into a storm, far worse than anything I'd survived before. 1 week after the funeral, when grief was still sitting heavy on my chest like a stone, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Morgan, this is Landon Reed, Mr. Davenport's personal attorney." My breath caught. An attorney? Why would he be calling me? "Could you come to our office on Friday for the reading of Mr. Davenport's will?" For a moment, I genuinely thought I misheard him. Me? At the will reading? Why? But I agreed. Part of me wanted one last connection to Charles, even if it was only symbolic. On Friday morning, I put on my second-hand black dress again and drove downtown. The law firm was in a gleaming 50-story glass tower, nothing like anywhere I belonged. When I stepped into the conference room on the 42nd floor, every conversation stopped. 30 pairs of wealthy, perfectly manicured eyes snapped toward me. Some stared. Some sneered. Some openly laughed. "Isn't that the caregiver? Why is she here? Someone must have let her in by mistake." I wanted to shrink into the carpet, but before I could leave, Landon Reed gestured toward an empty seat. "Miss Morgan is on the guest list. Please be seated." The murmurs rose, irritated and hostile. I sat quietly in the corner, hands clenched in my lap, praying the ground would open and swallow me whole. The reading of the will began calmly. Charles's mansion went to his eldest son, his vacation home to his daughter, company shares to grandchildren, trust funds to charities. Everyone nodded, satisfied. Then, the atmosphere changed. Landon cleared his throat. "And finally, Mr. Charles Davenport leaves a sum of $8 million, as well as a personal handwritten letter, to Miss Stella Morgan." Silence. Then, boom. The entire room exploded. Chairs scraped violently. Someone shouted, "What?" A glass shattered on the floor. Charles's son, Richard, turned crimson. "There is no way that is real. She manipulated him. She took advantage of an old man." His daughter, Alyssa, pointed at me, trembling with rage. This girl was his caregiver. Of course she brainwashed him. She's a gold digger, a leech. A storm of accusations swirled around me. She seduced him. She stole from our family. She belongs in prison. Arrest her. I tried to speak, to say anything, but my throat closed up. Landon raised a hand, firm and unbothered. "The will is fully legal." Mr. Davenport recorded a video confirming it himself while completely lucid, but his words only fueled their fury. Richard slammed his fist on the table. "I'll sue. She's not getting a single cent from my father." Alyssa's voice shrieked over him. "You think we'll let you walk out of here with our inheritance? Over our dead bodies." My chest tightened. My hands trembled under the table. I felt like the room was closing in on me. These people, his blood, never cared about him until his money was involved. And now they wanted to destroy me. When the meeting ended in chaos, I stumbled toward the elevator. As soon as the doors closed, my knees buckled. I slid to the floor, sobbing into my hands. $8 million, a letter. And suddenly, the entire world had turned against me. Less than 4 hours later, the first tabloids came out. Caregiver scams dying billionaire. Greedy Stella Morgan steals $8 million. Did she seduce him? My face photoshopped, uglier, distorted, was everywhere. By the next morning, my inbox was full of threats. Kids in my neighborhood whispered when I passed. The grocery cashier refused to touch my hand. That afternoon, my boss called me in. "Stella, I'm sorry. The backlash is too much. We have to let you go." And just like that, my reputation, my livelihood, my safety, all gone, and it didn't stop there. Because that same night, as thunder cracked outside my motel room, someone pounded on my door so hard the walls shook. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a young man covered in tattoos. Richard Davenport's grandson. He leaned in close, eyes cold like a predator. "You have 7 days, you dirty thief. 7 days to give back the inheritance. If you don't, I'll make sure you disappear." He spat on the floor and walked off. My body collapsed. My tears fell uncontrollably. I had never felt so hunted, so hated, so utterly alone. But what I didn't know was that in the depths of that terror, one letter was about to change everything. For hours after Richard's grandson threatened me, I just sat on the cold motel floor, with my arms wrapped around my knees, shaking so violently I could barely breathe. 7 days. 7 days before they came back. 7 days before I disappeared, as he promised. I couldn't call the police. Who would believe the greedy thief from the headlines? I couldn't call my parents, they'd abandoned me. I was alone, utterly, terrifyingly alone. At some point, my fingers found their way to the backpack I kept under the bed, the only thing that still held pieces of my old life. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, untouched since the will reading, was the cream-colored envelope with my name on it. To Stella, from Charles Davenport. I froze. A cold wave crept up my spine. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then I whispered, "Please. Please let there be something. Anything." My fingers tore the seal open. The paper inside smelled faintly of old books, and cedar the scent of his study. His handwriting was shaky, uneven, but unmistakably his. I began to read. "My dear Stella, if you are reading this, it means I am gone." My vision blurred instantly. "You gave me something my own family never did. Kindness without expectation, a gentle hand, a listening ear, a heart that cared." My throat tightened. Tears fell before I could stop them. "You reminded me I was still human, not just a bank account for my descendants. And I want you to live the rest of your life free from the people who have bled you dry." My breath hitched. Free. He wanted me to be free. The money is not a reward. It is a key to a life where you choose yourself first. My hands shook harder as I turned to the last lines. "And Stella, in the final years of my life, you were the granddaughter I never had. I leave you this gift not out of pity, but out of love. Stand tall. Live with dignity. You deserve that much and more." The letter slipped from my fingers and floated to the floor. I cried in a way I hadn't cried even in the hospital. Not just grief, not just fear, but something else. A spark, a pulse, a beginning. He believed in me. He risked his legacy for me. He gave me a voice, a shield, a chance. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve. "No more running," I whispered. "Not this time." The next morning, I went to see Landon Reed. He looked up from his desk, surprised. "Stella, are you okay?" I placed the letter gently in front of him. "I'm done being scared," I said. "Tell me what we need for court." His eyes widened at the determination in my voice, then softened with something like pride. "Then let's fight," he said. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting alone. The courthouse smelled like old paper, polished wood, and fear. Mostly mine. Cameras flashed the moment I stepped out of the elevator. Reporters shoved microphones toward my face like weapons. "Stella, did you seduce Mr. Davenport? How much did you manipulate him for? Are you returning the money today?" I kept my eyes down, clutching the letter in my purse like a lifeline. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. People standing in the back. Everyone waiting for the villain to be exposed. Across the aisle sat the Davenport family. Richard, Alyssa, and the grandchildren, lined up like a firing squad. Their eyes burned holes into me. When I took my seat beside Landon, Richard leaned forward and snarled across the room. "Enjoy your last day of freedom, sweetheart." My stomach twisted, but Landon placed a steady hand on my arm. "Let them talk. Today, we speak with proof. Hivink stands. The battle begins." The plaintiff's lawyers launched first. They painted me as a manipulator, a liar, a predatory caregiver who preyed on an old, dying man. She isolated him. She controlled his medication. She tricked him into signing the will. Lies. All lies. Each word felt like sandpaper dragged across my skin. Then came the evidence. Fake text messages, Photoshop screenshots, audio clips edited to make my voice sound greedy. I wanted to scream, to tell them it was all fabricated, but my voice was trapped somewhere deep in my chest. Alyssa stood up dramatically and pointed at me. "My father was sick and confused. She brainwashed him. She stole from us." Gasps filled the room. My heart felt like it was bleeding inside my ribs. Landon leaned in. "Ready?" I nodded. though I wasn't sure I truly was. Our turn. Landon stood, calm as stone. Your Honor, we will present the truth, not rumors, not manipulation, but the truth. Mr. Davenport documented himself. He began with medical records from 3 separate hospitals, each confirming, patient is mentally lucid, cognitive functions normal, fully capable of making legal decisions. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but that wasn't the real blow. He held up a hard drive. And this is Mr. Davenport's final message. The lights dimmed, a screen lowered. My breath hitched. There he was, Charles, sitting in his wheelchair, eyes clear and steady, voice unmistakable. If you are watching this, I am likely gone. I want the world to know that my decision is mine alone. Stella did not manipulate me. She cared for me when my own family did not. And I choose to leave her what I wish, because she is the closest thing to family I ever had. The room fell dead silent. Alyssa gasped, gripping the table. Richard went pale, but Landon wasn't finished. He lifted the letter, Charles's letter, and read the final lines aloud. Stella, live with dignity. You deserve that much and more. My tears fell silently. I didn't wipe them away. The judge looked at me for a long moment, not with suspicion, but with something like empathy, the verdict that changed everything. When the gavel finally struck, the sound cracked through the room like thunder. This court finds the will valid. All accusations of undue influence are dismissed. Miss Stella Morgan is the lawful beneficiary of the inheritance. It was over. I won. Or rather, the truth won. Richard slammed his fist on the table so hard his chair toppled. Alyssa screamed in disbelief. The grandchildren covered their faces, too ashamed to be seen. But I didn't celebrate. I simply exhaled. A shaky, broken breath I had been holding for months. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around me. A microphone nearly hit my cheek. Stella, do you have anything to say? Do you regret fighting the Davenport family? What will you do with the money? I paused, looked directly into the nearest camera, and said softly, I never needed the money to prove I was innocent. The truth was enough. Then I walked away, head high for the first time in years. Not because I was richer, but because I was finally free. Free from lies. Free from fear. Free from a life where I was only worth what I could give. But I had no idea that freedom was only the beginning of the life waiting for me next. When the courthouse doors closed behind me that day, it felt like stepping out of a 2-year storm. For the first time in as long as I could remember, the air didn't feel heavy. My chest didn't ache, and I didn't have to look over my shoulder, waiting for someone to take something from me. I finally had the one thing I had been denied my entire life, peace. I bought a modest home on the outskirts of Phoenix, small, quiet, sunlit, nothing fancy, but it was mine. A place where no one yelled at me, no one demanded money, no one made me feel small. I opened a tiny repair shop, Davenport Tech, named after the man who believed in me when the world didn't. I kept prices low, sometimes free, especially for seniors, caretakers, or people drowning under responsibilities they never asked for. People like me. And then, life surprised me again. I met someone, a kind, soft-spoken man named Evan, who came in with a broken laptop and left with something neither of us expected, a beginning. He didn't ask what I could give him. He asked how my day was. He asked if I was eating. He asked about my dreams I didn't even know I still had. A year later, we married in my backyard, under the small olive tree I planted the day I moved in. And then came Abby, my daughter, with her curious eyes and wild curls, and a laugh that could make the entire desert bloom. Some evenings, I sit on the porch with Abby asleep on my chest, Evan's arm around my shoulders, and the Phoenix sky burning orange above us. I think about the girl I used to be, the girl who believed she deserved nothing but exhaustion and pain, and I whisper to her, you made it, you chose yourself, and that changed everything. If you're listening to my story, and you're standing where I once stood, torn, tired, and terrified, please hear this. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who shares your heart. And your life is yours, not theirs to drain. Choose yourself, just once, and watch the world open. I did, and for the first time in my life, I am finally beautifully free. 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 beautifully free, 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 beautifully